What is up, YouTube? How is everyone doing? I'm late getting on, but I wanted to do the first episode of the weekly lawn and garden show. Of course, with me, I'll be the host, the Grass Factor. Gonna make it, try and do things, I don't know, I guess like a local programming type deal. But, I'd like to come at it from the standpoint that I'll answer your questions and at the same time kind of have a general overview of what I would, I guess, just some talking points. So if at any time right now you have any questions, do not hesitate to go ahead, type them in the chat, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. I'm probably going to take questions a little further outside of the turf management realm, and if we want to talk about trees, we can get into talking about trees. If we want to talk about soil amendments, we can talk about amending soil. We can talk about products. Wherever you kind of want this to go, we can push it that direction. I plan on doing this every Sunday at 3 o'clock. Sundays at 3 o'clock, that's going to be Eastern time. And yeah, it's shut down, but I'm back. My app had to restart. So, anyway, yeah, like I was saying, every Sunday at 3 o'clock, I'm going to be doing this, and we can take this a little further than just strictly turf management. One of the things I kind of wanted to talk about was organic fertilizers, and the reason being is that I get so many questions day in and day out about organic fertilizers. So that's kind of where I wanted to start. If you're familiar with the lawn care community on YouTube, organic fertilizers, in particular Milorganite, kind of has the cream of the crop as far as exposure. Everybody knows everything about Milorganite. Well, at least the fact that it's being used so much. And for those of you who don't know, Milorganite, what it actually is that it's a biosolid, meaning it comes from a waste treatment facility. It is it's a human waste that's been heat treated, and then they prill it. I'm not exactly sure how Milorganite specifically formulates their biosolids as far as their prill process. However, that's exactly what it is. It's a heat-treated waste to filter out a lot of the, the biology that could be potentially harmful to you and I. So that way, when we go putting it on the yard, we're not in turn spreading diseases or affecting animals in any way. There are some, I guess, ecological drawbacks to using a product like Milorganite or a biosolid. Some people are talking about pharmaceuticals being passed back into the environment through the human waste, that pharmaceuticals are not being taken out during their treatment process. So as it's reconstituted as a fertilizer, ultimately, we're putting the medications we take out into the yard. And as far as a soil building, there's my son. As far as having soil building properties, it does, and really the way that works is it's going to be the carbon content. I believe biosolids are made up of about 30% carbon. And carbon, of course, with its molecular structures, like the coral reef of the soil, it provides it a good host for beneficial bacteria and beneficial fungi. Got some questions coming in. Jonathan Wilson, if using a growth inhibitor like Podium, do you cut back any on fertilizer or stay with the same rate? You can cut back on your fertilizer because it's not going to grow out as much. So you can fertilize it at the same rate, and you're just going to get that extreme concentration of chlorophyll right there in your leaf. That's really, really going to darken it, or you can cut back on your fertilizer rates. But, you know, the choice is yours. I tend to fertilize like normal, even though I'm using a growth regulator. How can I kill nutsedge without killing my Bermuda? I've tried Crossbow, kills the grass, but the nutsedge lives. Fort Worth, Texas. Manelik, if I said that right, Crossbow is not designed to kill a sedge grass. Crossbow is going to be a mixture of triclopyr and 2,4-D, which are both synthetic auxins designed to control broadleaf weeds. A sedge species is not a broadleaf weed, so you will not get a kill by using a product like Crossbow on sedges. Also, triclopyr will harm Bermuda grass, so that's why you're harming your Bermuda grass and not killing your sedges. If you're trying to kill nutsedge in Bermuda, I recommend a product like Monument or Sedgehammer or Dismiss or Katana. Those four, or Certainty. All of those are sulfonyl ureas except for Dismiss, and they work extremely, extremely well on nutsedge in Bermuda grass. What's up, Shane? You're having a good success with Milorganite. Yeah, you know, Milorganite's going to have a it's got iron content. It also has molybdenum, which is also going to have a positive influence on chlorophyll production. So that's why you're going to get that greening effect from it. You know, again, it's not super high in nitrogen, so you have to go out at exceptional rates if you want to get your N rates up. And at the same time, it's going to rely on microbial activity to break it down. So, you know, you do not get quite the consistent release out of it, especially, you know, coming from my perspective, where I may be using it on 10 yards in a day. I'm going to get 10 different responses based on the microbial activity in the soil on those properties. As far as armyworms, if you're having armyworms right now, I'd say you're a little further south. Permethrin is a great product, as is bifenthrin. Both of those control armyworms extremely well. Yes. What up, Kyle? Yeah, Certainty is great. It works well on nutsedge and Kalinga. That's a good point. That's a good point. Would adding microbes from compost or worm castings help activate Milorganite and other organic ferts like seaweed alfalfa meal, bone meal, etc.? Yes, it would, Rob. Here's the thing. You know, you're not really adding microbes by using compost. Well, I guess in a sense you are. Is it going to speed up the breakdown any faster? Probably not. If you want to speed up the breakdown of a product like Milorganite, you may want to look into using a product like a compost tea, or apply Milorganite with a molasses-based product. So agricultural molasses is going to have pretty high sugar content, and that is an immediate food source for the microbes that will break that insoluble nitrogen down that's in a product like Milorganite. So that's kind of an old trick that if you're going to use, you know, an inorganic form, I mean, an insoluble form of nitrogen that's coming from an organic source, apply it with agricultural molasses, and you'll speed that breakdown up. In fact, a lot of your liquid dethatch products are going to have molasses in it. I believe some also have yeast in it as well, and it's good stuff. It's really good stuff. Shane, that's right, because you know the pads of dogs and other small animals are very sensitive to nitrogen. So if you're going out with high rates of ammonium sulfate or urea, it can actually cause some tenderness and discoloration on the pads of their paws. So that's a great time to use a product like Milorganite. What pre are you running this fall for your warm season? Kyle, I am going to be using prodiamine on warm season grass in the fall. I I'm not going to go the spectacle route. I just do not have enough warm season lawns to be able to go out with spectacle. If I had more Bermuda lawns, I may go the spectacle route, but I just don't have enough to justify using it. Frank Y, where can I get Podium and when should I put it down? Frank, you're a little late in the year. What turf type are you dealing with, and what part of the country are you in? And I may be able to steer you one way or the other to get the old Trinaxapac. David Watkins, DW, applying molasses with your liquid applications. I know you do. And David, you know a lot more about living bacteria than I do, you know, the bacillus varieties and stuff. I'd be interested for you to share a little bit of that information, because that's a whole nother world of biology that I do not know and I don't understand. And we may be seeing more and more of that as these biologicals are developed and being marketed towards us. The one I'm super excited about, a biological, is going to be a living bacteria that is designed to be used as either a pesticide or a fertilizer or something to help build your soil. So the biological I'm in particular very excited about is one being released called Zeo. C-Pro is the one who's doing the marketing. Ag Biome is the one who did the research behind it, and it is going to be a biological fungicide. And in their trials so far, it has been on par with azoxystrobin, also known as Heritage, as far as control of brown patch and Pythium. Frank, you're in Kentucky. Wait, you got Kentucky bluegrass in Michigan. Okay. So really, when you're talking about a cool season turf like that, the best time to apply a product like Trinaxapac, which is the active ingredient in Podium, it's best to do it before you get that initial spring surge growth. So ideally, you would be looking in that April to May time frame to begin your Podium applications. And depending on what rates you want to run, you can either do them in monthly intervals, 4-week intervals, or you can cut your rate in half and do it bi-weekly, and you'll get even more growth suppression out of it. And especially if you're looking to get the benefits of increased root mass and the color performance and potentially hardening off of the plant to decrease disease, then Podium is going to be best used on a bi-weekly interval. However, if you just are going out of town and you want to shut it down for a little bit, then just do a single application at a high rate and you can maintain it monthly. But it's best to really begin doing that at that time of your first flush of surge growth. Georgia lawns turn yellow in late summer. I see this in a lot of lawns here in North Carolina. Joaquin, my man, when is the last application of fertilizer that has been put down on those Georgia lawns? Answer me that. When was your last fertilizer on those lawns? What pre-emergent have you had the best success in controlling crab and goosegrass in late summer? Bermuda lawn in North Carolina, Piedmont. I've had the best success, Jonathan, with prodiamine. Prodiamine has been my best bet. I put it down at 1.3 pounds of active ingredient per acre. And I haven't had any particular issues with it. Any advice controlling wavy basket grass in St. Augustine in Zone 8B? Move. That's my only advice. Move. In fact, I'm not familiar with wavy basket grass. That sounds like something new that's an invasive. So if you bear with me, let me do a little bit of reading about wavy basket grass, and I may be able to give you a little bit more information. That's St. Augustine, so you're dealing with it in a sensitive turf type to begin with. Joaquin, 6 weeks ago, I would say it's run out of fertilizer, especially if you've been getting any sort of rain. That Georgia grass is going to eat it up really, really, really quickly. So Typically for a turf type like zoysia, I need to be applying fertilizer. Even if I'm using like a 45-day duration, I need to be doing it every 30 days through the growing season, because it's going to use up so much of that nitrogen so quickly, especially in the event of heavy rainfall and high temperatures. It's going to burn through it that much faster. Okay, so let's see here. Got some questions here. What up, Pete, my man? Podium, as far as where to get it, I would check with your local Site 1 and see if they carry it. I don't know. Advanced Turf Solutions would be another one. So Podium has many different trade names. You've got Podium, you have Primo, you also have, what are the other ones? Somebody help me out. What are the other names of Trinaxapac? Oh, T-Nex. T-Nex AQ is another product that is Trinaxapac. And so you got T-Nex, Podium, Primo are the three names I can think of. I would check with your local Site 1. They tend to have most things. What is your strategy for full cool season monocot weeds like Poa, Triv, and annual and cool season lawns that you oversee? So I don't really have one. There's just not a lot of good options. I see you mentioned Poa Constrictor, Tenacity at Seeding, and then 2 Poa Constrictor apps. And October only mixed success. And in all honesty, I only think that's going to be your best chance of success. There's not a whole lot of technology out right now. You know, if you're doing it on a commercial scale or ball fields, then I would say use Ronstar. But if you're doing it on a residential location, then you don't really have a whole lot of options. I think the way you're going about it is going to be your best bet. Maybe if you catch some warm days and you see it come up with your Poa Constrictor, either run sulfentrazone or do some applications of sulfentrazone and tenacity combined. That tends to put the hurt on it, but I don't think you'll quite get the same kill. The other thing you can do is, while it's still in its really small stage, is use T-Nex on it. This isn't going to work for Poa-Triv, but it will have a better effect on the Poa annua. Is use T-Nex in conjunction with your herbicides, and that will help suppress the Poa annua as well. Do you use liquid seaweed like Maxicrop or Neptune's Harvest 001 to help germinate grass seeds when overseeding or renovating? I have not. I have used Lesco's Moisture Manager in the past. However, this year I'm going to be using a humic acid seaweed combination product called Next RGS by Greene County Fertilizer at time of aerating and overseeding. I don't think things like seaweed will increase the germination rate. However, what it will do is, as it does germinate, it will help it reach maturity faster because of the growth hormones in it. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. I lost my train of thought. I got to reading and lost my train of thought. Yeah. So seaweed isn't going to help you get a higher rate of germination, but it will help you. It will help those plants as they do come out. All right, let's see here. Use clean seed. You are not kidding, Pete. Use clean seed. I had a customer the other day who, a new customer, they were showing me their label off their Rebel 3-way blend that he got at the big box store, and under the section that said other crop and weed seeds, it both had a percentage listed other than 0, and that's just unacceptable. And he was wondering why he had orchard grass in his yard every time he seeded it, and he said he had to always end up roundupping it and then reseeding it, and then he would always get more orchard grass. And I said, well, that's your answer. So it looks like on this wavy leaf basket grass, Clethodim Envoy, that is a selective I have not used clethodim, so I can't recommend it. I don't know if it's labeled for residential turf. The only other option would be glyphosate. So I don't know. I don't know really anything about clethodim other than I've heard of it. I think it's big in the ag world. So if I were you, I would read the label on clethodim and see if that is something you can use residentially. And if you can, be sure to study that label and then give it a whirl. Report back how it goes. I'd be curious to work on a project like that. Good afternoon, sir. I am new to the lawn care area and am having issues in certain parts of the yard. I believe it is soil. I used starter fert in spring with Milo several times. No irrigation. Ideas? Where are you located, Mr. Crutch 9? What part of the country are you in? If I had to guess, Central Illinois. Did y'all go through the drought, or are y'all in the middle of the rainy period right now? I thought places in the Midwest are in the midst of a pretty hard drought. That may be further north into Michigan. If you're having trouble in spots in the yard, I assume you have turf-type tall fescue in Central Illinois. Do you have tall fescue? Not much rain. Been like this every year, though. Tall fescue. If I had to guess, I would say you're probably dealing with brown patch. Are you familiar with brown patch disease? I would explore brown patch as a possible issue because so what happens, at least here, is brown patch will form in yards. It'll get hot outside, and then it will cook those areas that are affected with the brown patch down to the ground, and I mean it'll just smoke it straight to the ground, and it will mimic the effect of having like a big rock underneath the ground, which could be another issue if you've got spots that continue to die every year in the same place. Take a shovel, dig down in there. Yeah, take a shovel, dig down in there a little bit, and see if you can unearth a rock. I had a perfect circle dying in this lady's yard one time, and actually when I started digging it up, there was a tire and rim that was buried in her yard, and that was why she had that perfect circle die every year. If you sprayed fungicide early in the year, that may not be enough. Fungicides, even the best fungicides on the market, are only going to be effective for 28 days. So keep that in mind, that if you are dealing with the disease issue, so fungus is going to take out, it's going to be in a large area. In fact, I've seen brown patch consume an entire yard before. Fungicides have to be replaced have to be applied every 28 days as long as the conditions are favorable for the disease to develop. So keep that in mind. Because even if you do have poor soil, there is a process called root cycling that is actually where the leaves are taking in carbon dioxide and sunlight, and then they produce carbohydrates for root system and root development. Well, as those roots grow down into the poor soil, some of them will die, some of them will live. Those dead ones will break down, turn into organic matter, and then it will, basically begin to turn that layer of soil where those roots have been and lived and died into its own form of topsoil. And then they'll attempt to go even deeper into the next layer of soil and repeat the same thing. So the best way to remediate a soil really is just to get vegetation growing on it, healthy vegetation growing on it. So if I had to guess, I would say you're dealing with an issue like disease that's taking it out. Menelik, which grass would be better for choking out weeds, Bermuda or Georgia? Georgia grass is better for choking out weeds. That's right. At 1% weed seeds, that means 3,500 weed seeds. That's crazy. That is crazy. The best way to prevent fungus in cool season lawns, Joaquin, it's start early. So I start putting down preventative fungicides would be mid-May is when I start, and you want to put that down every 21 to 28 days. So unfortunately, it's just an expensive thing we have to do, and you have to do it often because if you miss just even a little bit, then the disease can come out, and then you have to run it at double the rate, a curative rate, to knock out the disease. Will fungicide kill the fungus? I use propiconazole. Propiconazole does okay on certain diseases. However, if it is brown patch, Rhizoctonia solani, propiconazole will probably not give you the results you're looking for. What you will probably want to look for would be a product like a strobin. So azoxystrobin, fluoroxystrobin, Fame, Heritage, Armada, Headway. Those are all good products. Pillar G, they're strobins, and they will have better activity on brown patch than just propiconazole. So yeah, Joaquin, start early. Start early. Pete is here with his more cowbell. I mean more nitrogen. Are you guys still adding nitrogen at ½ pound per 1,000 or less in this heat? I'm thinking of using some nitrogen before plugging. I'm putting down in right now. So I'm putting out about ½ pound in anticipation of aerating and overseeding. It is hot outside, but it's not going to be hot that much longer. And in fact, next week we're going to be in the low 80s, so it's going to be perfect prime time for the resuming of growth of the fescue. Nathaniel says, I have to start treatments here in mid-April in Tidewater, Virginia. That's crazy, man. That is crazy. Yeah, that's pretty early. That's a lot earlier than we have to start here in Knoxville. How far away are you from me, Nathaniel? I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee. How far away are you? I heard Pillar G is no longer being sold by my distributor. I don't know anything about that, Mad Mowing, why they would pull it. I believe the active in Pillar G is picrostrobin, and it's also mixed with a DMI, and that's what makes up Pillar G. Can you mix a 2,4-D quinclorac mix with Dismiss? Yes, you can. So that would be very similar to what Q4 is, if you've ever seen that product. And typically that is how I will mix my quinclorac. I'll mix quinclorac with 2,4-D and a little bit of sulfentrazone, which is Dismiss. Look at that. Pete's still feeding them hard. ½ pound, yes, some yards. 1 pound, just depends on growing conditions. Yeah, see, Pete ain't scared. I get nervous, and then I have to call Pete, and he tells me to put my big boy britches on and get over myself. 6 to 7 hours away. Okay, so sounds like you're coastal Virginia then, maybe, or maybe north. I don't know. I can hardly find my way around Tennessee. Nope, ain't. Yeah, Q4. I don't like Q4 personally because it never does a great job at killing weeds. Pete, next Sunday, dude, at 4 o'clock, we're actually I haven't even told Pete this yet, but next Sunday at 4 o'clock, Pete and I are going to be on the same screen side by side, and I've got a list of questions that everybody has sent in, and we'll sit down and we'll answer questions for all y'all, and it's going to be a ton of fun because we're going to be on the same video at the same time, and that's going to be sweet. I think you're talking about Solero, Shane. No, I did not use it because I bought so much. There we go, Matt. There we go. Because I bought so much Dismiss on pre-order that I did not do it. Can you keep him in there? All right, you gotta go in here. You got it? Okay.
What?
So we had an accident here where
it's not good.
Everything got knocked over in front of me on this table.
Go to your room.
And I think my wife is going to cry. Pete, no, we're going to do it over the internet. We're going to do it over the internet. So I've got a system figured out where we can actually do it on the same screen.
Just spoon you just made a miss.
That's right. Like better than Q4 for warm season grasses, I like the sulfonyl ureas, the Monument, and Monument, Katana, Tribute Total, Celsius. I like all those better on warm season grasses than Q4. Yeah, this Zion is an interesting thing. It is it doesn't do. You have to be very careful in what you touch. You have to be extremely careful. What up, Texas Welder? How are you? How are you? What is a good all-around product for weeds on tall fescue?
Daddy.
Do they make a good all-in-one? No, they don't. Crutch, there's just not really a single product you can apply on everything for tall fescue that's going to... I mean, there's some good broad spectrum products, but just none of them are going to be perfect, so to speak. So I've still got a little bit of a disaster going on here.
Daddy,
Where I spilled power. I got it.
Can I have this?
Yeah, you can have that.
Yeah,
Do you want this one?
Yes.
Take this. Here we go.
Take this.
So yeah, next week, yeah, my son is telling me I'm in trouble like I didn't already know. Next week, Pete, Denny, and I are going to go live at 4 o'clock for our Q&A, and I'm probably going to go on at 3 o'clock. And next week at 4 o'clock, we're going to go live together, and we're going to answer all the questions that everybody has sent in over email. There is quite a list of questions that have come in. All right, I'm back. What's the latest you can aerate Bermuda? Soil temps start going below 70 around mid to late October here. I mean, you can aerate it. You want to make sure it has a chance to recover before the first frost. So, you know, I'd say you're probably looking at somewhere around mid-September would be, you know, maybe your cutoff date on aerating. If you do aerate it late, I've seen plenty of aerations done in the dead of winter on Bermuda grass, and it never hurt it. So if anybody ever told you that it would kill Bermuda grass, it doesn't. It's not ideal for it, but it's not going to kill it. So, you know, but yeah, I'd say like mid-September, somewhere in there is going to be probably your best bet. Texas Welder, it depends on the kind of tree it is. I don't know if it's like a Bradford pear that is going to send up lots of shoot growth even after the tree is cut down, then yeah, that will work, drilling holes and pouring glyphosate in it. If it's it's an oak tree, yeah, that's a great idea. You can put some humic acid in the holes. Or you can pour nitrogen in the holes. That will help it break down even faster. But if it's an oak tree and you know you cut it down to the ground, it's not going to send up a whole lot of water sprouts, especially if you cut it pretty flush to the ground. Oak trees aren't going to be like a Bradford pear, where it's going to attempt to regrow, or a crepe myrtle. Crepe myrtles don't really take too kindly to being cut down. In fact, I've seen a guy pull one out of the front yard with his truck, and then it came back within about 2 years. It had completely grown back. Do you include nutgrass in your customer plans or charge extra for treatment? I usually include it, Kyle, but it depends on the severity of the situation. So, I mean, there's kind of a time and a place for it where it does have to be sold additionally. But for the most part, I include it. Spraying generic dismiss now, generic sulfentrazone is pretty cheap. So, it's not the chore that it used to be of having a blanket spray something that's going to cost $2 a thousand, and then put down your fertilizer at $2 a thousand. Now you're at $4 a thousand, and you charge $4 a thousand. You made no money on the application. So products have gotten cheaper, so it's easier for me to include it. Have you or Pete heard about the Asian longhorn beetles taking trees? Yes, Mad Mowing. I have heard about the Asian longhorn beetles. They are going to be the next issue we face after all our ash trees are dead from the emerald ash borer, and ambrosia beetles and Asian longhorn beetles are going to be our next big thing to deal with. If you're looking for a control remedy on those, permethrin, bark applied works well, as does injections of a product like imamectin benzoate, also known as Triage. That's a good one. How late can you put down some fertilizer on Bermuda? I'm in Arizona and don't plan to oversee with rye this winter. Where's that Southern tea? I went to New Bern, North Carolina, and it was amazing. You can fertilize Bermuda grass, pretty late. I just wouldn't push a whole lot of nitrogen, within like 8 weeks of it going dormant. But you back your rates down to about a ½ pound of N, and up your potassium rate. So use sulfate of potash, and you can go. You can rock and roll with it. Pete, I want some of your sweet tea. I'm not gonna lie. I love sweet tea. I think you gotta love sweet tea. It doesn't matter who you are. Do you have any experience verticutting Bermuda? Is it worth it on most home lawns or just the high-end turf? Verticutting is a great cultural practice. It's definitely going to help tighten that up, because basically you got these big long Bermuda grass runners, and then you cut them and they're tacked down at different points. Well, where you cut it, you create new points for it to branch off, and so you make that weave tighter and tighter and tighter every time you verticut. So is it worth it to do in a home lawn? It depends if the homeowner can keep up with the other parts of the maintenance plan that have to go along with verticutting. So if you plan on verticutting, you've got to run pretty aggressive rates of nitrogen or use growth regulators, and then the mowing has to be there on top of it. The watering has to be there on top of it. So it's just one tool that goes together in a whole program. If you've only got that one tool without the rest of the program, then it's not really worth your time, effort, or money to do that. 1648 mid-September 007. That's right for Bermuda. Yeah, typically in September I would spray like a ½ pound of potash and a ½ pound of urea with barricade on Bermuda grass. So yeah, something like a 1648. Put a ½ pound at. Give it a little color for the rest of the year. It'll be fine. Yeah, Pete, dethatching's the same thing. It's pretty much the same thing. Verticutting is going to go a little deeper if you're using a true verticutter, versus where a dethatcher is just going to make those cuts. It's more like a slit seeder without you actually dropping seed. So it works. And they both work. And then also for dethatching, usually what I recommend for Bermuda grass is your first cut of the year. Just come in there and scout that damn thing to the ground and get rid of all your clippings. The best time to verticut is going to be early in its growing season. So once you're at 100% green, we'll call that mid-May. Then get in there and verticut the fire out of it. I love warm season turf, Pete. I love it. I love it. I can spread the ashes after smoking. I don't. Yeah. Some people, like, back in the back in the day, they would burn their Bermuda grass fields, just burn it straight to the ground, and man, they come out of dormancy faster because there's no layer there to insulate the ground, so it heats up really quickly when the sun comes up, and they just explode out of the ground when they do. Plus, you're depositing a lot of carbon back into the ground, and as somebody said, a lot of potash. There's a lot of potassium that's going to go back in with it. We're having more and more each year convert to Bermuda and Zoysia. It's not my fault, Pete. It is not my fault. It's the smart thing to do. It is the smart thing to do. You know, it's that whole thing, right plant, right place kind of deal. And, you know, it is, you know, feskew's not the right plant for at least Knoxville. I'm 100% convinced of that. And yeah, Tough is going to be the way to go, especially since it's showing so much promise and being drought resistant, and the amount of color it can hold, and the fact that it's showing the ability to grow in shade. Now, I think Tip-Top Bermuda grass is definitely going to be the way of the future. I would love to get some here at the house to experiment with, but it's a little bit difficult to get. I got to get it out of North Carolina from Super Sod if I want it, and I think they're charging somewhere near a small fortune for it still at this point. I've never had to deal with Kentucky bluegrass, thank goodness. I hear it's I hear you either love it or you hate it. I don't know. You know, I know Kentucky bluegrass is a cool season turf, and I know it's got bill bug issues, and it's going to have the same disease issues as turf type tall fescues. But I'm just I'm glad I don't have to deal with it day in and day out. I have enough of my cool season fill on the fescues, and I'm over it. I'm over the cool season grass. You know, I think Tip Tough obviously was developed in Tifton, Georgia. I know UGA has done a lot of testing with it. I think there's a pretty good video out about it on YouTube where they were highlighting the fact that it actually spread into shaded areas, which is kind of the interesting thing about it. My knowledge on citrus trees, none. What's your question? I may be able to point you in it just from an arboriculture perspective rather than just a true citrus tree knowledge. Orange trees are a citrus tree, Pete. Let's start an orange grove. How about them apples? That sounds like fun. We have the first orange grove of the mountains. That sounds like a winning situation. Yeah, that was the other thing reading about it is how well it held color into drought. And that is that's pretty interesting. A Lisbon lemon tree, all the leaves fell off, but the fruit is still there. If I had to guess, you've probably got some leaf spot. Leaf spot is pretty bad right now. I see a lot of trees out with it. So there's going to be a couple of different ways to do it. I don't know if you plan on eating the fruit of that tree. And if you are, I'm not going to be able to steer you in a direction one way or the other, but it's not good that you're losing leaves this time of year. I would be sure to collect those leaves. Do not let them stay underneath those trees because those spores can recycle and basically, you know, keep that cycle perpetuated. Can you pretty much get all your properties with the perma? My Z tends to be too big for some residentials. Kyle, I put my Permagreen on every property I have. I don't pull a hose anymore at all. I literally use my Permagreen on every single property. And in fact, that was the main reason I bought the Permagreen, was I wanted a machine that I used on every property. I didn't want to use my machine 50% of the time. I wanted to use it 100% of the time. If I'm going to spend $10,000 on it, I'm going to use it all the time. I probably have hair spot. All my hair is falling out. Yeah, me too, man. Me too. I've got pretty aggressive hair spot. What Bermuda seed have you had better success with? I've used Princess 77 and Yukon with okay success. Both of those, Riviera, I had a little success with. Not a big fan of seed and Bermuda grass, but it can be done. Chris, my man is a Permagreen man too. How about them apples? How about them apples? Do you treat any beds, SureGuard gallery, etc.? I can't see using right on for that. No, Nathaniel, I do not treat beds. I honestly don't have the knowledge or the time to do it. Is Tip Tough going to compete with native Bermuda? I'm renovating this year and love Turtle Fescue, but I have to deal with Bermuda in it every summer. That's an interesting question, Mike. I think what you're going to see happen is if you have a mix of native common Bermuda and a hybrid Bermuda grass, they're going to have cycles where you may get a 3-year period where that common's going to outperform it, whereas for the next 3 seasons, for whatever reason, that hybrid may outcompete the common. So I think what would eventually happen is that you would have like a 50-50 blend instead of just a pure stand. So your best bet would be to do some pretty aggressive glyphosate renovation applications. I live in a cool season area with lawn, which is a blend of ryegrass and fescue. This spring I dethatched, overseeded with Kentucky bluegrass. I have some Kentucky bluegrass growth, but way less than expected. What can I do? What are you saying? You want more Kentucky bluegrass, Mike? If that's the case, round up out your fescue or ryegrass areas and overseed again. Typically, you're going to get better results fall seeding than spring seeding. So I would plan on doing some major rehab work this fall to get your Kentucky bluegrass established. My wife thinks I should clean my shower twice per week. I say it is cleaning itself. Water, soap, clean. What do you think? David, I'm going to agree with you that typically what I do is as I'm showering and washing my hair or my armpits or whatever, I do a little fling activity like this, or as I run my hands through my hair, I give it the salty kick, and then run it over it with the shower head, and that's my version of cleaning the shower. And if that's ever an argument to be had, I will win that argument. So I'm on your team about this. Joaquin said, Matt, what do you think about the ½ gallon per 1,000 nozzle in the Permagreen? Better result with RGS. I'm going to run a quart per 1,000. Will you have better results? Maybe, I don't know, but I do everything at a quart. My whole thing on the whole low volume argument is as long as the right amount of active ingredient is going down, I don't care how it gets down, because all the labels are gonna say pretty much the same thing, whether it's pre-emergent or whatever, water in to activate. So it doesn't matter if you use 5 gallons of carrier or you use 32 ounces of carrier. You're still, as long as you're getting down the right amount of active ingredient, that's the only thing that matters to me. Texas weather, my wife cleans it. Yeah, DW, tell her to follow me. Tell her to follow me. Her and she and my wife can go do their salsa dancing or bachata dancing and all that fun stuff that they want to do. Low volume does rock. I prefer low volume. You can run fungicides at low volume like that. I've always heard you use at least 2 gallons per 1,000 to get it down in the soil. Nathaniel, I do all my fungicide applications at 32 ounces per 1,000 with fantastic success. I think Pete from GCI Turf would back me up on that. And there was a published research done from North Carolina State University where they tested the efficacy based on different spray volumes, and low volume perform equally, if not better, than the higher volumes. So yes, you can run your products at low volume. Highest temp you would apply and dismiss on turf type tall fescue, probably 92 degrees, David. Definitely caused some discoloration, but it did grow out and recover. But somewhere in the lower 90 range there. In fact, I did it at 6 ounces to the acre too on that turf type tall fescue in that heat, and it worked. It didn't kill anything, so I guess I got lucky, to be honest. All right, y'all, it's 4 o'clock. I'm gonna begin to wind it down now. One thing I wanted to bring up is that I'm gonna start doing this every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So keep that on mind, and I'm gonna try and mix things up. Next Sunday at 3 p.m. I will go live, and at 4 p.m. Pete Denny and I, maybe at 3:30, Pete Denny and I are gonna go live together and answer the questions from the Q&A where we've been collecting questions, and we're gonna have basically just a big long discussion live on air about the questions y'all submitted. So if you haven't submitted any questions, there's still time. thegrassfactor@gmail.com. Pete Denny is P Diddy. Yeah, so next week, 3 o'clock, I'll go live at somewhere between 3:30 and 4:30 and 4 o'clock. Pete Denny will join me, and we're gonna start doing this every week. And maybe I can get a whole host of different guests on here and make it fun, because there's definitely a lot of questions out there in the turf world, and there's not a lot of resources to turn to get the answers you're looking for. So anyway, I'm glad to be able to do this with all of you. As always, I hope you enjoyed the rest of your weekend. And if you need to reach out to me, my email is thegrassfactor@gmail.com. If you do the Snapchat thing, I am on Snapchat as The Grass Factor. All right, y'all. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.